Now loading.
Engineers are the facilitators during the creation process of music. If they were part of a sports team, they wouldn't be the superstars, but they would be a key part of the team that enables everyone else to be the best versions of themselves. Engineers provide stability to the music creation experience and environment. Brendan Morawski is one of those people. I wanted to just know what see the role of an engineer in music.
I mean, the role of an engineer in music can be like lots of different things, and it's definitely dependent on who you're working with. But I'd say it's always you're a facilitator of, other people's creativity and helping them get their ideas out there, so some artists like you to be very collaborative, and some artists really just want you to kind of be able to understand what their intentions are in that studio that day. And so, with some of the clients that I work with, it's about just understanding their process and what they like to have in the studio. It might be they like lots of instruments set up and just having that all ready for them and being flexible. And they might want to make music on their own. And what does that mean? Or they might want to sometimes bring in other musicians or producers or songwriters to work with them also. And so you just kind of got to be a little bit of a ninja in terms of just accomplishing all of their tasks, and it's kind of like playing a sport in a way that, everybody has their own role. And so you kind of know what those other roles are and how to facilitate their roles with what your role is. So first off, it's being, technical. Engineering is definitely a technical job, but it's also very creative. So, if I'm working with Alicia, she likes to get creative on the technical side and using different microphones and different keyboards or instruments and stuff like that. Whereas other artists I work with, it's more about them coming into the studio with their ideas already in mind, or coming to the studio and getting to a vibe and like figuring out what they want to make that day and not complicating the process for them. Like some artists love to sing on different microphones and some want to just be able to get them in the booth and go for it, and if you're working with a band, it's a lot different because they're their own cohesive unit. And so it's important to create a system or like an environment for them that they can like do what they're best at, and you just kind of like highlight it. If I'm recording somebody, regardless whether it's a producer or a singer or a group, one of the technical goals is to and their sound as best you can and try to deliver that as quickly as possible so that they can feel confident, get excited, like with a band that doesn't really get to hear themselves, how they sound coming through, like studio speakers all the time, because they might be in like a rehearsal space or something like that. It's always best in the process if you have the time to like really get the sound sounding great before they come into their room and hear that first take or their first couple takes. And when they are like, wow, this is really exciting. This is more than I expected. And we're just doing our basic tracking right now, it gets them excited and helps the performances being better,
Right. So it sounds like you have to really tailor what you do around, I guess, how the artist operates almost.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if I'm working with a producer, some producers like to have me record in all the sounds, and we'll do the arrangement of the music in, my Pro Tools system. That's what I work in, is Pro Tools. And, other producers want to be able to have me just like record sounds that maybe they don't have as many channels in their interface, and they have a bunch of keyboards. So I record it all in and take like little loops and stuff like that and send it back to them. There's some people that are super fast in Pro Tools and, great editors. There's some that just love vocal editing, and they work with producers where the producer's capable of recording all the sounds themselves. And then there's some artists that, they have really great ideas, but they lean on the engineer to help them arrange the song.
Right.
You might have an artist that kind of goes into the booth and does a bunch of takes, and the engineer might help them pick the best takes. They might help them say like, okay, this second 8 bars that you did in this freestyle right here, that's really dope, and that could be a cool chorus or whatever. And like I said earlier, some are really great vocal producers, or some are really great at working with musicians. Because working with musicians brings in its own thing, because like just aware that everybody needs to be able to look everybody in the face, and so like how do you
Right.
set up a studio where you've got a drummer and a producer in the control room maybe, and a guitar player or a bass player or a horn section, and make it so that everybody can have their visual cue, just kind of work together. So it's like, music has all these genres, and it's like the engineers that engineer for them are all different. Like if you work
Right.
in, it's kind of important that you can read music, whereas if you work in styles of music, that's not always important. So it's like, what are you passionate about, and like what skills are going to be needed for you in like these different genres or clients that you
Genres.
could be working with. Yeah.
Right. I wanted to go back to earlier. There's certain genres that engineers may be celebrating more than others. So what genres would you say engineers get the most celebrated in?
I think that when you're working with musicians, like engineers, like especially in the recording realm, are really, because we help create your tones. And then I think that when it comes to genres where it's a little bit more vocal based, and
Oh,
what's really happening is more based on the singer, there leads to be an opportunity for like what we're bringing to the table can be overlooked.
are you a sports fan?
I'm not the best
What-
with sports.
Okay. What sport do you watch?
I mean, I watch a lot of basketball in the studio, a little bit of
Okay,
baseball in the
okay,
studio.
okay,
Um, I have a few friends in the studio who are big hockey fans, so that gets played in the studio a
okay,
lot too.
okay. Because I was just figuring out a way. I was figuring out what sport you watched, and figuring out, okay, within that sport, what position is equivalent to like an engineer when you compare it to their role in music with the other components within like a song or album, or like, so with the NBA.
I think an engineer is kind of like a point guard, in a
Okay.
way where we're not supposed to be the star of the show,
Right.
but we're there to make sure that nothing goes wrong and kind of like help
Right.
facilitate, and chaotic sessions. And
Okay.
what I've learned recently is, or not recently, but I've just kind of come to terms with it, is that usually the more chaotic the session, usually the better the music is made. And that's just like my personal experience. So
Okay.
that might mean that the people who are writing the songs, performing the songs, are in a very vulnerable, emotional place.
Okay.
Mean that there's just lots of people in the studio, just like all contributing their own energies, and so it can be a little challenging in those environments to know what the right next step is to take. But I found that that's always leads to like kind of the most exciting or like meaningful songs and music and stuff like that. Why I bring that up in terms of the team thing is like, it's my job in those environments to just be able to handle it. It's my job to be like, okay, cool, like they're trying to do this and that and whatever, and like require some extra steps, but like I just got to get it done. I got to get it done
Right.
fast, and not make a big deal about it, because ultimately it's about letting them express themselves.
Right. So how is the dynamic between, let's say, an engineer and the producer and the songwriter and maybe the artist that's performing the song? Like, how does that dynamic work?
Well, you have with everybody in the room, it different ways, but so basically, like, when everybody's in the room, it's typically like an artist, and usually they'll kind of gonna guiding the people about what they want to talk about. What where are they at in their life? What is on their mind today? Like, how are they feeling? Are they excited because they just started a new relationship? Are they in a relationship that's maybe going a little sour and they're struggling with that? Do they want to talk about, just kind of like life, empowerment, or a struggle? And, if the songwriter is there, then they're going to start taking that input from that artist and start trying to come up with, some ideas, of like, all right, I'm happy, but what's making me happy, and start tailoring some lyrics and melody that, resonate with that artist and that artist's perspective. And then, you'll have a producer who will probably be contributing to the vibe of like what we're talking about. Like, oh, that's a really cool idea. They might give lyrics too.
Right.
And then start trying to create a musical bed that supports that emotion and that energy and that vibe that's happening in that day. And then as an engineer, it's about, just capturing everything and letting people feel free that, they can just make music. So
Right.
like some artists we work with, like the output of the board is always being recorded, like even if I'm not recording all the time, like a vocal mic or a keyboard or something like that, like everything that's going out the speakers is being recorded. Sometimes in a songwriting session, Pro Tools is just running for hours, and there's a microphone in front of the songwriter, and there's a microphone in front of the producer. There might be a microphone that's just picking up everybody who says anything in the room, and the output of the producer's system, whether it be a laptop or just a bunch of keyboards. And then I might be making marks in the session and writing notes down and saying like, oh, right here they got really excited about this idea that they had, and like right here this is like where it seemed like he kind of like figured out the drums and this section, so that when they're like, hey, there was a part in the song where, or like there was a part in the day where we had this really cool chorus melody, can you play that back? They might really be on the verge of figuring out that lyric or that part that they're trying to do, and I can be like, oh, here's that melody that she was humming or he was humming, an hour ago, that I think that's what you're talking about, or here's another one or whatever.
I feel like with engineers, I feel like engineers provide stability that then allows everyone else to have the freedom to do what they do. Almost. Would you say that?
Really valid. It kind of goes in tandem with what I was talking about before, and just kind of understanding and being able to interpret and be a step ahead in terms of how people like to work. But then on a more technical basis, I need to make sure things working, so, like sometimes I get hired as an engineer to sessions where there'll be like a songwriter, a producer, and the artist, and they don't really need me that much. The producer wants to record in his laptop, which is cool with me, and
You've done engineering for a lot of different artists, and you did a song on one of my favorite albums of 2016. So
Okay,
that
what's
was
that song?
Kiss It Better, Rihanna.
Okay. That, I mean, working with Bria is great. We definitely recorded it super late at night, you know.
Makes sense.
And yeah, and those songs, they're usually
What was that experience like on working on that song? So how did that song sound in the studio at night as well when you heard it?
I'm trying to think of this one line. It's like there's another line that just really stuck out to me,
Take
and
it.
it's just
Would
like,
it take it all back?
like one of the reasons why I got into recording music is because I want to make art that can touch as much people as possible. And so, when you're working in popular music, like some of the most listened to artists and stuff like that, then you're definitely guaranteeing that little bit of energy or a lot of bit of energy, depending on what you're doing, that like helps do the song, like, impacts how people are going to feel, and it's not even
Right.
just engineering, like it's, everybody involved down to the intern who's going and getting the food and just, really taking the time to pay attention and just, be aware of, they like this or they like that, and, most engineers, not all, but a lot of engineers come up through an interning process and stuff like that. And it's all about just being humble, being appreciative, and just trying to understand what makes people feel good. And so when you're working on stuff that really gets you excited and that like it's going to be heard by the world, and you feel proud of the energy that you put into it, it's just, you can't really beat that.
Right.
Yeah. It's really rewarding to be out in public and hear songs that I've been a part of.
Wow.
Like that's, whether it's, an Alicia song, a Rihanna song, an Ariana song, or, a Lil Wayne song, or a Nicki song, or, you know, uh, a song from The Greatest Showman, or, whoever it might be, a Taylor song. It's just, that's like, for me, that's what it's all about. It's just like, these are songs that people listen to and connect with to get excited, to get over a hard time in their life, to
Right.
relax, to enjoy a day of celebration, whatever it might be. And it's just, you know, engineers, studio people, we work really hard to do this stuff. And, we sacrifice, personal time with, close ones and all that kind of stuff. But it really, it's, great when you can see the, feel the fruits of your labor, and you can, be driving down the block and you see a bunch of people excited, or even just talking to you and how you're telling me that, this is a song that I really connect with. And it's like,
Yeah, that's
it's
yeah.
meaningful to me to know that I was part of that in my own little way,
Yeah.
and it's very rewarding, and it's definitely what keeps me coming back for more every day, and just trying to
Right.
have a good attitude and put my best foot forward no matter who I'm working with, because you never know, and like,
Yeah.
and I don't want to, I might be working with an artist that I'm not very familiar with, or
Right.
I'm not very familiar with their style of music, but I still need to give them my best energy and do what I do the best that I can, because there's going to be somebody who's going to listen to that and really connect with that. And I want that to be the best that it can be.
Right. How hard is that to?
It can be challenging, and it just, I think for me, it just takes a lot of humility, and so like, I try to look at it like I'm not the master or expert of anything, I know what I'm good at, and I know what I understand, and I just try to use those tools to do my best. And, with some artists, it really clicks and there's a great synergy there. And with some artists, you know, they need a slightly different energy than I need. And like, I try to be humble enough to just appreciate all of that. So, the first thing is I listen to their music, or I listen to music that's similar to what they are, because I need to respect the fact that they're their own unique artist. So
Or particularly well versed in, but you have to conjure up, work with someone where maybe the genre isn't something.
like lots of times I get called into the studio to work with somebody that I've never worked with before and I am familiar with their music, or people that I'm not familiar with their music. And so as soon as I find out who the artist's name is, I go online and, I start trying to find their music videos and their songs and just start watching stuff. I might go to their Instagram and just try to get an idea of who this person is and what they're talking about and what they like. And, I'll listen to the songs and try to listen to the mix and hear, okay, they like this and they like that. And because at the end of the day, it's not, like I said, it's not about me. It's about me helping them do what they do best,
Right.
So, you know, but at the end of the day, the more that you relate to someone, the more that you relate to what they're doing, the more that you can shine. Um, but sometimes you don't learn as much when you're in a very comfortable environment. So I do like to challenge myself. I like to get out of my comfort zone. It can be it can make you nervous at times if you're working with someone that you feel like is coming from a different walk of life as you, and
Right.
and it's something you don't relate to. But I try to be a professional all the time and not let that stop me from believing that I can't do a good job, and I try to learn from everyone. Just because you're I've never listened to your music before doesn't mean that there's something that you can teach me,
Right.
or just because, I've done thousands of sessions doesn't mean that there's one session that could teach me something new. So
Right.
and that's where like the humility comes in. It's just like, art is progressive. It's always changing, and, people's tastes are always changing. So I just like to look at it as like endless possibilities, and I just want to be worthy of being part as much as I can and do as much good work as I can.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What song that you worked on?
The first song that I ever was like not like an intern or assistant, like I was like engineering and being a part of it, was this song called "I Want to Get Better" by the Bleachers, who is Jack Antonoff's um, project. And I think that was the first song that I worked on that I got to hear on the radio, like
Okay.
national radio. And it was the first time where I was like, okay, I'm I'm on the path, and like the the fruits of my efforts and sacrifices are starting to work out. You know, um, it's not easy to get into music, like whether you're a local gig musician or, an engineer in LA or New York or wherever, it's hard, and it takes a long time to get your financial support together. I'm lucky that like my family definitely helped me, but I struggled with working hundreds of hours a week, like over 100 hours a week, tons of times between multiple states, crashing on friends' couches and all that kind of stuff. And to finally get a piece of that reward that I was looking for was just like, okay, this is going to work out, and it's, I just got to keep going, like I've made it this far and just don't stop, because it as a musician and an artist and a creator, it's easy to doubt yourself. It's easy to get discouraged at times, especially when you're putting in like all the energy that you can. So it's really meaningful to have those moments where it just says, okay, it's working, like
Right.
keep going.
Yeah. So, what was what was the song that you heard while you was out that you worked on, made you appreciate?
Can't remember right now, but it's like there's some that just stick out to you and you're like, wow. Um, One of them was "Thank You Next" with Ariana Grande, and one of the exciting things with that project is it happened so quickly. Sometimes we work on songs and it could take years to come out, just because of the process. But that whole album was done really fast, and I was surprised by how quickly it came out. And at the time when we were working on that, Ariana was going through a relationship at the time, and it
Right.
had its ups and downs, and it was really special because it was one of those times where a lot was happening in the room and there was a lot of strong energies happening. And sometimes it's not one of those days where it's just kind of you show up and you do your normal thing and it's easy, because when people are in a vulnerable state, it can you know be challenging to keep up with them and you know keep them in their vibe that they're trying to do and help them perform. And it was just really special because I felt like I was really part of that process, as an
Right.
engineer. And then just hearing it, only a couple months, I think, maybe even 1 month after we made it, come out. And it was just really exciting and just made me feel really good about, that I got to be a part of that. And I got to um, work with, Tommy and Ariana and, everybody involved. And it was just really special. And, it seemed to have a good response, and people were really into it and meant something to people. And,
It did. It
and that's the special thing, it's just making like getting to be part of music that people relate to and it really speaks to them. And you know maybe answers questions about what they're thinking about in their own life, or just helps them cope with something that they're going through, whether it be good or bad. It's special, and that's like what art's all about. It's just connecting with people and relating to them, and sharing emotions and stuff like that. And you know and for a while, I couldn't go anywhere without hearing that. Or like Seven Rings too, that was a day
Oh yeah.
where
Yeah.
you know it was a totally different type of energy that she had in the studio for that song. And I remember my good friend Sean, who was working with me in the studio on that project. And uh we had taken the night before to just kind of go to the bar and just kind of like decompress a little bit,
Chill
because
out.
it's a little
Yeah.
intense. And we were a little tired the next day and stuff like that. And we got through the day or whatever. And just it's just great to just have those memories and those like personal moments that like will forever be connected to these songs.
Right.
And just like I hear these songs and it's like it brings me back to a particular place in my life. And and going back to the I Want to Get Better song with Jack, to working with Ariana, to getting to mix some of Alicia's songs on her latest album,
Right.
it it's really great to just have these things that just pop up. You might be in the grocery store or getting in a cab or going to a concert and it's just playing before the show starts or whatever, and it just like brings me back, and it's like my own little like time capsules, and it just remembers like, okay, like I was at this place in my life when this song
When this
happened,
happened.
and
Yeah.
I was in this place in my life when this song happened. And it's just really special, and that people get to, the fans and the people who listen to it, just get to keep those moments alive for me. Like I don't have to go through a photo album to remember these things. Like these songs just pop up, here.
That you talk about these different songs being time capsules for like different parts of your life, because
Hmm.
us as fans, we just think about that with us. We just think about these are the songs that define this summer or this particular part of our lives, but we don't really think about, even for example, with engineer, we don't,
Yeah,
you know,
or it just helps me to remember the people that I work with. Like the music
right,
industry is kind of small, but sometimes it might be years in between working with some people that you get to meet, and you're in these vulnerable situations, these long days, and you really build these relationships, and you're forever connected to them through these songs that you've worked on together. And it's just really special to hear a song and say, oh, I remember being in the studio with Jack, John, and Laura, or I remember being in the studio with you know Tommy and Ariana and Sean, or I remember being in the studio with Fred and Alicia and Johnny, and just those moments that we had, and these conversations that we had, and goals that I had at that time or whatever. And it's just like, the songs that I listened to when I was growing up, whether it was this band or this artist or whoever, and what that means to me from my childhood or my adulthood or whatever. And it's just but the songs that I get to be a part of, it just really makes me remember about, being in that studio and, working on this or that or whatever. And sometimes you forget about the songs that you work on because I work on songs every day, but, I have a good ear and a good memory. So song might come on and I'll be like, I think I worked on this song, and then it just like brings me back to, 2014 or 2012 or 2016 or whatever. And it's like, I remember working with Derek and Justin and Benj on these songs and what that experience was like. And sometimes the experiences are really easy and sometimes they're really hard. But at the end of the day, if you get a great song out of it, it's just, it really is the ultimate reward because then it means something to other people too, you know?
everything you've everything you had to go through to create that type.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I mean, I love, I work on a lot of rap music and it feels great to just, in the summertime, hearing songs that, I've been a part of and people are, having a party or a cookout or going to the club or whatever they're doing, something positive and fun and light spirited. It's just like, it feels great to be like, oh, like I, that's like part of me,
Yeah,
and like, that's what it's all about. It's those artists' songs, it's their music, but
yeah.
a little bit of me
It's
is
part your
it's
DNA part is attached to that in
a little
some
bit,
way or form.
and
Yeah,
what I always tell everyone in the studio is, if you're there, then you're part of it. Like that's why I bring up the interns. It's like, if you take the time to get make an artist a great food recommendation, and it's like, they're like, I'm hungry, and it's like, all right, you could just pick something easy and simple, or you could be like, find something exciting. I like to eat good food in the studio, and that's kind of, I'm a foodie for sure. And
yeah,
I just encourage people. It's like, you might not feel like what you're doing is important, but it is,
Right.
and that's like kind of what I'm trying to touch on. It's like the artist is in the same space as you, and you might be a few more degrees separated from them than somebody else, but if you're cleaning up the room for them, or you're getting their food, or helping them with their errands, and just making them feel comfortable in the space, like, you helped, you know what I mean? And you should take pride in that, because you're creating something that is meaningful to a lot of people, you know what I mean? And you should take pride in that. I don't believe in taking credit for things that you don't do, but you did contribute in your own way, and
To the
that's really,
environment.
yeah, and that's really, and take pride in that.
Yeah. There was you touched on just you working on rap music, right? And there's a song that you worked on where there was a singer that was stepping into the shoes of like a rapper. So it
Okay.
was it was the Nothing Is Promised song
Okay.
that Rihanna did, right?
Hmm.
And that song is like you can tell she was walking in the shoes of Future,
Right.
right? So with that particular song, seeing a singer tap into a pocket that was it's essentially rap singing.
Hmm. I mean, she's just one of my favorites, man. Like, like, before I started working in the studio, it was easy to like use your own personal bias and opinion on things to like
Right.
credit or discredit people. But once you really start to understand how these things get put together, and you see the mastery that people have with what they bring to the table, it's just really special. Like, there was a reference for that song, and then Ree did her own thing, and it just,
Okay.
every time you get to hear her voice on a song, it's just special. That's why she is who she is, you know what I mean?
Right.
We're lucky to be able to have her as an artist and hear her music. And for me, it's just, I've been lucky to get to see it happen, and it's just special,
Right.
like. And you're sometimes, she likes to record late at night, and you might have gotten there 16 hours before she hops into the booth, and so they can be long days, but you're excited about the fact that you just get to be around greatness. And
Right.
like I said, her whole team is great. Omar, Marcos, Coop, Jay Brown, everybody is just really great and very thoughtful and calculated in their own way. And it's just special, like, there's this story that I always tell about people, or tell to people, about ASAP Ferg. And he
Okay.
was in the studio one time, and he was talking about how, making $1 million is really simple. All you need to do is buy 1 million pens and sell them for $1. And it's something I never forgot, because if you break down the metrics of that business plan, it's not as simple as maybe he said. Like, buying a
Yeah.
million pens has an expense to it, and et cetera, et cetera. But why it's meaningful to me is I just get to be around people who are solving problems, who are overcoming obstacles, who are just trying to see their dreams through. And it's just an infectious thing to be around people that are just making their goals and their dreams happen. And so, going back to Rihanna, this is someone who's done incredible things in music, is an incredible person, whether she's a business person or an artist, or all the things that she does. And it's just special to be able to witness that firsthand, and
Must bring the best out of you.
Yeah, and you just want to do your best. It's like, being on a team and you're at the final game of the season, or you're in your championship or semifinal, and it's like, okay, this game matters more than maybe some of these other games that we did. Every game is
Right.
important, but like today just feels extra special, and then when you get to experience that, I think it's important to just try to make every day like that, as best
Right.
you can. It's like every day is going to be special. And the more that you get exposed to these like little moments of validation, the more you start to learn that that's the walk that you got to walk,
Right.
and greatness isn't random, it's hard work and preparation and stamina and just momentum and just keeping with it and just continuing to pursue your dreams, and I'm lucky to work at a studio where there's always new people coming up, interns, assistants, you know all sorts of people. And we at Jungle City, people are really get a good trajectory and they move on their own paths of success and greatness. And it's it's great. And sometimes I get reminded by new people that like, what you've done is incredible, and for me, I don't ever look at it like that. I'm just like, all right, I'm ready for more. I want to like, I want to get an opportunity to work with another great artist and
Right.
another great song or another great project. And sometimes you're not in control of that stuff, like it's it's easy to like make a goal of like, I want to win a Grammy, but you could work on some of the most incredible, meaningful things, and that's just not applicable for what that content is, that song, that music, that podcast that you're working on is. And it's just important to get reminded and experience these special moments to just say like, I want to be special and I want to do my best work and I don't want to just do the bare minimum,
Right.
you know.
So you put out an EP recently, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what was that experience like?
um my good friend Johnny, he owns Cinematic and Smokers Club, and we've been friends for a few years now. And maybe about like a year and a half ago, I just mentioned that I like make my own music, and I played some stuff for him. He got really excited about a couple of the songs, and he's like, "Look, you know, we're brothers. I'd love to put out your music. It's great. I'm excited about it." And I've been making music, my own music, since I was in high school, and I'm always just like very subjective with it. And I'm always just like, oh, it's not good enough. Like it's yada, yada, yada. And, Johnny definitely gave me the push and the motivation to really finish something and take it serious. And, it's just been a really rewarding process. One of the reasons why I decided to do it is I wanted to expand on like my relationship with creating music, because as an engineer, you're not always in control of what you're up to. You know what I mean? And that's not
Right.
a good or a bad thing. I love engineering and I love the challenges and the rewards that it provides. But sometimes it's important for me to be able to work on stuff that is like exactly what I want to work on. And doing this EP was that opportunity. I love reggae music and a certain type of reggae music, and I also wanted to just start expanding how people see me and how they can relate to me. And so, I want to start the opportunity to be in the room and contribute more than just engineering, and, create songs with artists. And so this was kind of my first step into doing that, and I got the idea of, using dub plates with artists, so because sometimes it can be tough when you're trying to connect with artists. And if you're up and coming, then, you might only have the resources to work with up and coming artists, and up and coming artists are great, but sometimes it's a simple process if like, hey, there's this artist that I can connect with that like does what I love, and so in reggae music it's great because they do dub plate. I started connecting with this guy that produces these studio sessions with different artists, and so like every week he schedules different artists in the studio to do dub plates, and you can just get on the list. And instead of doing a traditional dub plate, I just started sending my own beats and saying, all right, I don't want you to do, who am I? I want you to just do a freestyle on the song, and
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do my best and make it into a song, And fortunately, I had someone to help me, Johnny, just not stop taking it serious and push me and connect me with people at his label that just started helping connect the dots. And it was like, oh, okay, like I need to take this
Right.
serious. It's not something I'm just casually doing anymore. I gotta like make this happen.
Right. So Johnny is
the
yeah.
owner and CEO of Cinematic
Okay.
Worldwide, which is like a indie rap label, and then he also is owner of Smokers Club, which is a music label and fashion brand. And so, he's says that he's a big fan of reggae, and just like wanted to be able to put out some of those kind of projects. So just kind of like perfectly aligned, between the two of us. And
Right.
my goal is to keep the relationship going and just put out more music and just keep doing more stuff.
Right. So it's like going back to the NBA, and you saying that as an engineer you're possibly like a point guard facilitating, um stepping out and doing this EP and producing. It's almost like you're adding another position. So you're a
Yeah.
point guard, but okay, so now I can play the small forward position, or I can go into another position. So it's kind of like linking it back to basketball.
Hmm.
It's you're adding different positions to your
To what I do.
to what you do, exactly, to what you
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
Right.
and it's exciting, it's a good healthy challenge, to just step out of my normal realm of what I regularly do. And I'm thankful to have a good platform behind me to like just kind of help me be successful. And it's just rewarding. It's like art and music is really progressive, and that's why I like it. It never really feels repetitive for me.
Right.
Even though like certain things you kind of are doing over and over again, but it's different cities, different artists, different songs, different people. Like it always just makes it like uniquely special and different. And doing the producing an album and putting it out myself, and having to come up with artwork and promotion and all that stuff has just been a really good big step into doing new things and just becoming aware of new facets and having to think about new things. Like I've watched artists do meetings about it and had them talk about it, and I've seen them happen. But now I have to do that for myself and ask myself, like, how does this relate to me, and what do I think is a good approach, and what's important, and then not only just thinking about it but doing it and making it a reality. And it's really exciting for me, and it just feels like I'm just continuing on that path of just pursuing my dreams, and just challenging myself and having variety, and it's really exciting. And everything starts small, like from a little seed or an acorn, and it just grows from there. And the
Right.
first artist I worked with was not a major artist, and so it's kind of exciting to just find a new way to start over again and find that fresh, like humble
Energy.
beginning, yeah, and
Yeah.
energy and just go for it.
So who are some of the artists on your EP?
I have Beanie Man, Michael Rose, SZA, Mikey Spice, Sanchez, and Leroy Sibbles.
Wow. That must have been a interesting.
I didn't actually get to be part of it, you know what I mean? Because it's
Okay.
basically it's like dub plates, so I just send my stuff and get connected or whatever.
Okay.
But it still feels great to put out the songs, and I've connected with some of them after I put out the EP, and
Right.
I've gotten good responses from them in terms of like what we did, and like it's special to be able to work on a song or make your own song with somebody that's inspired you in music in the first place. Like I'm a huge
Right.
Michael Rose fan, I'm a huge Sizzla fan, I'm a huge Beanie Man fan, Sanchez, all of them. And it's special to like hear a song that I did, and like I was just at the studio the other day, and one of the guys had taken a couple-week vacation. He's like, bro, that was like the soundtrack for my vacation. Like I was bumping it the whole time. And I'm like,
Wow.
this is what it's all about. You know what I mean? And like, I got to make a song with somebody that is a legend to me, and it's just awesome. It's just good. Just a lot of positive, positive stuff.
So as far as just producing engineering, what similarities?
I think the similarities are just like being creative, like touching on your own tastes of music. I think that like when we listen to music and we start building our own natural like catalog of musical experiences, from the things that our parents expose us to, the things that our
Right.
friends expose us to, the things that we find out on our own, it kind of all shapes our tastes and like what gets us excited. And I think that like, with engineering and producing, it's the same thing. Like you're gonna highlight the things that just get you the most excited. Like I love bass. I love bass lines, and I love drums and all that kind of stuff. I'm a bass player also, and so when I'm mixing a record, I always want there to be as much bass as I can get in the record. And
Right.
when I'm producing a song, I always want the bass to be like a cool part. It might not be the most important part, but I always want there to be a cool bass line in every song that I do, and so it's just like what gets you excited, Is it
Right.
effects? Is it arrangement? Is it chords? And you just naturally start to highlight those elements, whether you're a producer or an engineer or a songwriter or anything.
Right. So there's a lot of synergies between those different roles.
Yeah. I mean, especially today with technology, producing and engineering are very similar. Like, an engineer in a very traditional role may not be putting in a lot of input, but we just don't live in a world where that's the case. Even down to like setting the auto tune setting, like, are you going to do it at 0? Are you going to do it at 5? Are you going to do it at 20? Are you going to do it at 50? Or just understanding music, like trap music and modern rap music very uh, is regularly like minor music with a vocal melody that's major. And so, okay, cool. Like the key of the song is A minor, but I probably should set my auto tune to C major for this song because they're probably going to sing more of a major melody. And so I want the auto tune to work the right way. And just using your music and your understanding and what you think is important, And so, like, if you're choosing the key of the auto tune in a way, that's production. If you're choosing the takes, that's production. If you're melodyning the vocal, which is a process where you can manually choose the notes to enhance a vocal performance, that's production. You know what I mean? But it's also, some of those things are very technical, so it's also engineering. Because you're using
Right.
software, you're using technology, you're using equipment. um, you know I might have the opportunity to choose the equipment that we use to record the song. Production, you know what I mean? You're molding the tones, or shaping it, and then sometimes with some producers, they might make a they might make an 8 bar or 4 bar loop, and that's like what starts the song process. And then a songwriter starts singing over it. But an engineer might say, like, okay, this might help the songwriter if I add a filter, and so, like, every 16 bars I filter it, and maybe that's the verse, or maybe that's the chorus, or whatever, and just doing stuff. Or maybe they add more reverb on the vocal in the chorus. Like, to some people that's production. You know what I mean? But it's all
Right.
technical stuff too. So, like, it's great that everything can happen in a laptop or a computer. You don't need to have a multi-million-dollar studio to make a great song. So, producers can get a DAW, whether it's Logic or Ableton or Fruity Loops or Pro Tools or whatever they like to use, and get in there and start getting technical and start doing stuff. And whether they see themselves as an engineer or not, they're engineering stuff. Like, if you're recording a songwriter in your house, like, you're engineering, you know what I mean? But you might really see yourself as a producer, because you made the beat, and you helped them write the song, and you arranged
Okay.
it, and helped them get it on YouTube or Spotify or whatever, you know what I mean? But those are all really technical things too. And so it's very mixed with both. And I
Right.
think there's some classic things that one person's going to focus on more than the other, but so much of it is very similar.
Right. So for someone that wants to become an engineer, what steps should they really take, or what
I,
things should they be paying attention to?
I think if you want to become an engineer, it's really important to start paying attention to artists and groups. You know, make sure that you go and see people perform live, and kind of like when you might not have access to a recording studio, you might not have access to like tons of equipment, but most places you can see people perform, whether that's at a church or a small venue or a large venue, and just start to experience, like, okay, like, there's people coming together, making music together, and like start trying to understand in your own way how that's working. There's obviously like tons of tutorials online, and they're all great. Like, that'll teach you how to set a mic pre, how to plug in a microphone, how a compressor works, how reverb works. And if you want to be an engineer, you're going to need to be technical. So, like, expose yourself to those things. And then the next thing is, once you've started to learn a little bit of technical things, and maybe you've gotten a DAW, whether it's GarageBand or Logic or Pro Tools or anything, like, start making your own music, and just start. You don't have to want to be a musician, but just start getting comfortable with like what the experience is like using this technology. And then once you've felt like you've done that a couple times, the next thing to do is to just start making music with people. Start trying to
Right.
engineer for people. So you've seen some people perform. You're kind of starting to understand how it's working. You've started to learn a little bit about how all this stuff kind of works together. You've done it firsthand now with just your laptop or whatever. And then now it's about just seeking out musicians or singers in your neighborhood or your local community, and just getting with that, like working. One of the things that I realized when I went to New York is that there was no time and space for learning. And like we do a lot of training and we teach people a lot of stuff, and there's certain things about professionalism and like high quality production that like you don't become aware of until you're like in that environment. But if you don't have the basics, there's really no time to teach you. So
Right.
if if you don't know what a mic pre is, it's really hard for me to take you to that next level to be ready to record Ariana Grande or Rihanna or whatever. So the best thing to do is to get in the studio with your friends, people, your friend of a friend, or post an ad online and saying like, "Hey, I have a setup and I want to record." And it's all very meaningful. Like I said earlier, like the first artist that I recorded was not famous, and I learned a ton from that. Like they molded the beginnings of like how I understood how all this stuff is together. So just start. If you have a laptop, you can be an engineer. And
That simple.
it's that simple. Like there's and as you go along and do more songs and experience more things, you're going to start to realize, I need to think about this, I need to think about file management, I need to think about hard drives, I need to think about headphones and microphones and all these kinds of things. And like just the more experiences that you get, the better that you are. Like to be a great engineer, you don't need to go and buy the most expensive microphone and equipment to do that. Like I always tell people, like, go buy a Focusrite Scarlett. They're for most people very affordable. That you can get an interface that is 2 channels for like less than $200, and get a pair of headphones. Get 2 headphones so that you can record, and you can be at the computer and someone can sing, and go from there. You can get an SM58 for $100. Like it doesn't have to be a fancy studio mic. Like, or get $100 studio mic, whatever. Like, don't focus on what you don't have. Just if you have a laptop, you can be an engineer. And just get exposed to what it's like for people making music together, and you'll start to realize what excites you. And once you start seeing what's exciting to you, just keep going in that direction. Looking at tutorials like, oh, I heard this song and there was this cool effect. Probably Reddit will help you learn what that effect is. And then you now know
Reddit,
that's,
great for those
yeah,
things.
like that's a delay. Okay, cool. Now you can go on YouTube, how to use a delay on a vocal, and infinite tutorials will come up. Take the time to watch them, and then once you've gotten a little bit of experience doing all that on your own, then it's time to start finding people who are professional that you can work under, just maybe even have conversations with, and they don't have to even be in your area. Like we have the internet. So like, you know, I talk to kids all the time via email and Instagram and, all that kind of stuff that, they've met me or been referred to me through someone I know. And, I'm personally always very happy to talk to people when I have the time. And most professionals are like that. You know what I mean? If you're just polite, genuine, and professional, like most people will want to help you out. So
Right.
if you hit me up and say, hey, what's the best thing that I can do? I'm going to ask you, well, where are you currently at? Like, what is your goals? And I'm going to try to give you the best advice that I can based on, my personal experiences. But yeah, it's so available. Is it easy to make it a career? No, because you have to be really determined. It takes a long time for it to become generating income.
Right.
And running a business is a separate tangible skill to just being an engineer. but it's all just about being professional and working really hard and, just go for it.